Mike Kennedy Alone has started back up, season 8. I noticed this year that it seems like the skill level of the people is much higher. Now, I admit I haven't raked through everybody else's experiences of other seasons, but it seems like there's more actual practical experience in this group. It was funny. They were showing this 43-year-old woman, and you know how you just look at someone and you think something or whatever, and I was looking and thinking, wow, is she out of place here? And then they talk about her, and she's like a big game hunter with a bow and arrow, so it's like she's exactly in the right place. That she's got some really, really high level skills of archery. But, archery, being able to hit a target isn't enough, because when you're hunting, you have to have all the skills of hunting and knowing exactly where you can shoot at the animal. But there's all of that hunting information too. If someone was just practice with a bow and arrow for a long period of time and get very proficient at it, that doesn't necessarily mean they would be successful hunting. So this woman really looks like she's got the skill to take down any type of large game, probably including a bear. Although the idea of shooting an arrow at a bear seems so bizarre to me. It's really dangerous because bears are particularly nasty if they're wounded, and you can shoot a bear, and if it isn't a good shot, that bear is going to come after you and you're going to be in big trouble. I've actually seen sometimes people hunting with the bow and arrow, big game like this, and they have someone standing next to them with a high power rifle. So, and I even saw one shot where it was some video, I forget what I was watching, the person took their bow and arrow shot, and the animal was like, yeah, you're going to do that to me? And so the bear comes towards them, and then the guy with the high power rifle took the bear out. But so it's very tricky with an animal like that. Now with some other animals, say like moose and some other thing, the animal is going to try to flee. So the idea is going to be that you still got to get a good shot, because you don't want to chase this animal for a couple miles. But you know what I mean? There's less chance that animal, like a deer or something, is going to turn on you and try to take you out. They're going to tend to either escape, or a lot of times it seems with bow and arrow, you do your shot and you remain very quiet, and sometimes the animal will lay down very close to where he was shot and basically just bleed out. So I went on the site that has the equipment that people brought, and I noticed a lot of them brought bows and arrows. Another thing I noticed was a lot of them didn't bring a knife, but they brought a multi-tool instead. So instead of the traditional, bushcraft knife, they brought a multi-tool. Now, of course, the advantage to a multi-tool is you've got something to work. You can work with wire and things like that, making your snares better. Virtually everybody, I think, brought snare wire. And this would excel at doing something like that. Most people brought saws instead of axes, I think. And, saws are really good when you have a lot of dead fall, because you can just easily cut it right up. It takes a lot less effort to cut up logs with a saw, I think, than with an axe. It's generally safer too, unless you're, super skilled at using an axe. A saw just seems better for a lot of purposes, although taking down trees with a saw, that are standing isn't going to be as easy to do as taking it down with an axe, I think. But so it's interesting, like I say, most people look like opted for a saw rather than an axe. Most people brought the fishing hook, and you can go on the Alone site and you hit the cast button. They have a couple paragraphs about each person. Then they have the list of 10 items they can bring. So the way alone operates. They have this group of equipment you can pick 10 items on and you can bring, and that besides the equipment that they're like requiring you to bring. So you have these 10 items. Seems like just about everybody picked bow and arrows this time too, and one guy is just going, surveying the area, seeing what's there, what there are for resources or whatever. And he sees a grouse. He's got his bow and arrows with him, and there he has dinner. So I think a bow and arrow would be, and being proficient at it as a hunter would be an invaluable skill. And I would think now too that, like I say, I think it impresses me that, or I have the impression, I should say, that this season they have people with a lot higher skill level as far as actually using the equipment. In other words, they're not just taking people on YouTube that do survival type things or whatever. They've actually got people who actually lived it. They've got a person from Maine, from Cherryfield, Maine, and besides all her things in Maine she did growing up, she lived in a remote Alaskan village for a while. Met her husband there, and now they live back in Maine. But I would assume that she has, quite a bit of skill level too. Now they don't. Again, they're doing this thing I don't like as much, but they're not checking in with everyone. So the first show goes up to day 6, but they don't do some of the other people. So I don't know. That's what they've been doing, and I'd rather have a check-in from everyone. But I'm sure they're doing that to keep the suspense up. There was one season where I think one person was actually doing so much better than the other people, they actually avoided showing a lot of footage of that person later in the season because people would say, oh yeah, this person's going to win. But maybe I'm wrong. But you figure they have a mountain. These people carry 50 pounds worth of camera equipment into their camp, and whenever they're doing anything, they've got to have the GPS on them, they've got to have the cameras on them, so they must produce an enormous amount of footage. Most of it useless as far as TV goes, but editing out those pieces that are good, and then maybe further editing it out because you don't want the audience to see certain things because it might give the show away or something. I don't know. So there's a scheme to how they're doing it. They're not just saying, oh, here's the best footage from contestant number 2. They'll get 7 minutes on the show. Then we'll give contestant 3 4 minutes of video because, and then they go through all the contestants each time. That's not how they do it. I think there's more of a scheme to it and making things real, more enjoyable or more suspenseful. In other words, the aim of the show is to produce a TV show that people will watch. It isn't necessarily a show to accurately portray what everybody's skill level is. That's not the aim of the show. And it does seem, again, like as I've watched the seasons over these last 7 years, it seems like the people that are more focused on the prize money, that need the money, tend to be the ones that win. The people who are like, well, I have to prove something to myself, I want to prove something to others, those people eventually feel they've proved it to themselves and then they leave. So in some ways they prove they couldn't do it because, if you're there only 25 days and everybody else is there, for 75, or, that proves that you didn't do it. So I've just noticed that the people need to have the eye on the prize. People that really need the money or want the money. One season, the winner, for whatever reason, he said he hadn't done much for his daughter, and so he wanted to win so he could use some of this money for her. And sure enough, he ends up winning. But it just seems like the more financially driven contestants seem to win. But it will be interesting this season because it just seems like you've got this this higher level of skill of people who had actually lived it. There was this one woman that they showed some footage of her, and I was thinking, boy, is she out of place? She isn't going to do good. Then I cut away to her experiences, and she's like she's a crazy good hunter with a bow and arrow, taking down large game. So she's exactly where she should be. She seems like stands to be perhaps one of the winners. Or the winner. I shouldn't say one of the winners, but when I said that, I meant she's someone that will be going a long way. To me, most people took the bow and arrows, and I think people have come to the realization that, to win, you've got to be able to hunt. Just doing the snare wires and the fishing isn't going to work as well, because the fishing's going to end. There are periods where there's just no fish; they're not biting, and it's just, you've got to have some other source of protein, and catching just rabbits isn't as good as having other meat that has more fat in it and things like that. So seems to me a bow and arrow is an important article to have with you, and like I say, really have the skill, because it's so much different than being super. I watched this one video channel, and this guy did these amazing things with a bow and arrow. Like, he's way far away from something, and he has something dropped, and he hits it in midair with his bow and arrow, and it's small. He's quite a ways away. But see, that person, and I'm not saying he couldn't, because I don't know him personally, he may be a great hunter, but having those crazy archery skills doesn't necessarily translate over to being a hunter. You kind of need archery skills and hunting skills. So, like I say, the skill level of the people seems to be higher, and I don't know, in some years they've just drawn some of the people from YouTube that are kind of, what do I want to say, they're like self-proclaimed survival experts, and I'm not saying they aren't good at what they do, or the classes they run, or things like that, but there's a big difference between teaching and demonstrating things, and then actually having had the experience and being able to go out into the wild in a stress situation and be able to use those skills. And of course, the big thing that people realize or don't realize with alone is that being alone is one of the biggest enemies. That people even get an emotional shock when they see the boat leave, and they're there for good, and everybody's left, and it's kind of like a shock to your system. And indeed, being able to live with yourself for these 100 days presents quite a challenge for some people, because any unresolved conflicts and things like that in your family and everything, those are all going to come up. They're going to come up over and over again, and it seems like you have to have some kind of peace about things, and have things to distract you, have things to do, because the day length gets shorter and shorter. As they're on the show, they're getting more towards the beginning of winter usually, and it's just shorter day lengths and a long night. So it gives you a lot of time where normally you're not out doing things because it's so so dark and cold and all of these things. So you've got a lot of time where you could be idle, and needing to deal with that. And it's one season, the winner, they show him collecting up his stuff, and he's carved like 100 different spoons. It was funny watching. Oh yeah, I got to bring these. Got this big load full of spoons, but basically, he kept himself busy in the evenings. Now, I don't know that he really needed 100 spoons, but he did end up winning, so maybe he did. But maybe there's other things people could do that are more direct to affecting their survival. But in this case, just having something productive to do went a long way to deal with this person's use of the free time and not becoming like they were dwelling on things. So anyway, this season I think we have a higher skill level. We have a lot of bows and arrows. So I'm anticipating that there are going to be a lot more people that get game animals, and we'll see how that works out. Tell me what you think below. Bye.